Unbelievable transformation, the 3 a.m. cure for laziness that will change your life forever. In a sleepy town where the night fell like a heavy blanket, a strange sensation started bubbling at 3 a.m. It was like a whisper, echoing secrets that felt too bizarre to be true. Imagine the darkness coming alive, your clock ticking louder, as if it knew something big was about to unfold. People say every second after midnight holds a magic of its own, but this was something deeper, something almost spine-chilling. Those who tried it reported wild transformations, extra energy, laser focus, and an unshakable drive to conquer their to-do lists. But what was the secret? Rumor had it, a mysterious figure roamed the streets at night, leaving snippets of wisdom behind like breadcrumbs. Some claimed they saw him fill the air with electric intensity, as if everything around him just buzzed with possibility. A man in shadows with piercing eyes, dressed in tattered clothes, offering the kind of insight that gripped you by the throat and wouldn't let go. When the clock struck 3, it felt like the whole universe shifted. Those lucky enough to encounter him emerged with a profound glow, transformed from their lazy selves into unstoppable forces of productivity. The tales spread like wildfire, each with an edge of disbelief that hung heavy in the air. But what if it wasn't just tales? Like a train derailing, curiosity crashed through the minds of the townsfolk. Was it a trick? An elaborate lie? The thought conjured tightness in their chests, a certain knot of dread mingling with wild anticipation. Picture families whispering in hushed tones, casting nervous glances at each other as they contemplated staying awake, scanning the foggy streets for even a glimpse of their elusive savior. Faces paled, and hearts raced when they spotted movement, a form slipping through the shadows. Was it him? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the excitement ventured deeper, more stories emerged from social media feeds, a cacophony of shared experiences swirling together. Could there be scientific backing to this late-night magic? A chemistry set waiting for the right time to explode? The town buzzed, more and more caught in the webs of anticipation, but the shadowy figure remained elusive, just out of reach. Each recounting felt like a heart-stopping cliffhanger, with every curious soul drawing closer, desperate for answers. What would happen if someone dared to meet him? Would they too be among the changed, or was it all just a fantastical illusion? As the night thickened and the clock ticked closer to 3, questions lingered, compelling, haunting. What lay on the other side of that hour? The hour ticked down with an almost sinister precision. With every passing minute, the air felt thicker, charged with unspoken possibilities. A small group gathered at the corner store, sharing anxious glances and furtive whispers. They all heard someone mention the transformative power of the figure who roamed at 3. Eyes darted to the clock, an unyielding sentinel against the shadows that slowly began to stretch out before them. Lila felt the tightness in her chest as she scanned the street. She had heard the stories, witnessed changes in her friend's miraculous productivity surging from late-night encounters that most people dismissed as mere coincidence. But her heart raced not from excitement, but from fear. What if it was real? What if tonight was her chance? Her courage quaked as she spotted a silhouette moving gracefully through the haze, and she felt an involuntary shiver run down her spine. "Is that him?" whispered Jacob, his voice trembling like a leaf in a storm. They all leaned in, straining to catch any sign of the figure. The moment felt electric, a tangible force that held them captive. The shadows shifted, creating dance-like patterns on the pavement. As the figure drew closer, the once definable outline morphed into something unfathomable. The townsfolk stilled, breath hitching. Who was this mysterious figure? An angel, a demon, or just a man? The closer it approached, the harder their hearts beat, sink to the anxieties swirling in their minds. Suddenly, the man stepped into the pale glow of the street lamp. His eyes, seemingly endless galaxies, bore into Lila's soul. Time fractured, she felt raw, exposed, as if he alone could see the very depths of her being. His voice, low and mesmerizing, threaded through the air. "Welcome to the turning point," he said, a caress of sound that stirred a hurricane of emotions inside. The group was hypnotized, their skepticism melting in the warmth of his presence. Lila opened her mouth to speak but found no words, only the gnawing urge to reach out, to grasp even a flicker of what he offered. Transformation. That what everyone craved. As the man pulled a small, glimmering crystal from his pocket, light refracted off its surface, casting spectral reflections that danced across the asphalt. "Here lies your choice," he whispered, beckoning her closer. "Do you dare to embrace the unknown?" Her knees felt weak. She wanted to take a step forward, but the weight of the moment threatened to crush her. In the background, Jacob whispered urgently, "Maybe it's a trap." "We shouldn't," but his words slipped away, lost in the pulling gravity of the man's gaze. "Step forward only if you're ready to awaken," the figure insisted. A palpable tension stretched between them, like a taut string begging to be released. Lila hesitated. What if she did? What if she emerged stronger, unshackled from the chains of her lethargy? Or what if she vanished into the night like so many stories before, no longer a memory worth recalling? As she weighed her options in that suspended moment, a sudden rustle broke the fragile silence. A figure emerged from the darkness, panic surging in their eyes. "It's not just a cure. It's something worse." Murmurs of dread erupted among the crowd, a wave of disbelief crashing against Lila's resolve. Who was this new arrival, and what could they possibly know about the enigmatic stranger? In that critical breath before a decision, Lila felt a choice hanging in the air before her like a swaying pendulum. What truths waited just beyond the shadow of that midnight hour? Was she ready to leap into the unknown? As the clock tolled for 3, the air crackled with anticipation, every soul holding its breath, oblivious to the storm brewing, ready to explode. What was about to unfold? Would they step into glory, or plunge headfirst into madness? The new arrival, a woman with wild hair and disheveled clothes, stepped forward, her voice trembling as though she were facing a rabid beast. "You don't understand. This isn't just about awakening. It's about losing yourself." Her eyes darted from face to face, desperate for someone to believe her. People change, they confuse it with strength, but they don't see what they're giving up. Lila's heart hammered. What could this woman know that they didn't? The crowd swelled with unease. Whispers erupted around her, the atmosphere tainted by dread. Jacob leaned closer to Lila, fear etched in his features. "What if she's right?" he urged, his brow glistening with sweat. "What if this is a decision we can't take back?" The figure, the enigmatic man, remained unfazed. A small smile curled on his lips, as if her words were nothing but a fleeting breeze. "Fear is but a shadow on your path to greatness," he said, his voice almost soothing. "Embrace it, and it will become your greatest ally." But Lila's thoughts spiraled. Images of her friends who vanished into the night, chasing dreams that turned to nightmares, flashed before her eyes. She had seen it happen. They became mere remnants of who they used to be. Was the allure of transformation worth that risk? The woman pushed forward, her hands trembling. "I've seen the aftermath. Trust me, I thought I'd gained everything, but I lost myself. You can't get it back." Her gaze bore into Lila's, and for a moment, the noise around them faded as fear crashed down like a heavy wave. Lila felt paralyzed, a conflict swirling in her heart. The promise of transformation shimmered in one hand, while the warning echoed ominously in the other. Would she be reborn or simply erased? The street lamp flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced ominously. The figure began to move closer, crystal still in hand, pulsing with an ethereal light. "The decision is yours, but time is fleeting. It's your moment to awaken or retreat into shadows, he urged, advancing with an intensity that left Lila breathless. Don't. The woman's voice rang out, pleading now. You don't want what's in that crystal. It's a facade. With every heartbeat, the tension thickened. Lila's hands trembled, and her voice finally broke the silence. What do you mean? What happens when you take it? The figure paused, his eyes glinting with ominous knowledge. To risk is to live fully. Are you brave enough to let go of what you know? To let the darkness consume your doubts? The crowd held its breath, all eyes now glued to Lila. The woman began to cry, the desperation evident on her face. It's worse than you imagine. But that man will show you how to transform. He'll take everything else away from you. All that's left is an empty shell. Time ticked away, and Lila felt like a pawn in a game she didn't understand. Heart racing, longing for something more yet terrified of what it could cost, she stared at the glowing crystal in the man's hand, feeling the weight of fate rest on her shoulders. Suddenly, the clock struck 3 with a resounding chime, echoing like a death knell in her ears. In that decisive moment, Lila's resolve teetered. Was she prepared to take that leap, or was it time to pull back? What will you choose? His voice cut through the chaos, challenging in its calmness. And whether she knew it or not, Lila found that the truth might reveal itself at the very edge of commitment, or catastrophe. And as the truth loomed closer, shrouded yet unyielding, would Lila discover the hidden cost of her ambition? Or would the shadows grip tighter as she stepped into the light? Lila's breath hitched as the moment stretched, a taut line pulled between hope and despair. Her heart thundered in her chest, each beat echoing her swirling uncertainty. The crowd, alive with whispers, felt like a living organism, shifting and breathing with every flicker of the street lamp. Jacob's voice broke through her haze, more insistent now. Lila, we can walk away. We don't have to do this. His eyes searched hers, calling out to the part of her still tethered to reality. For the woman, desperate warnings spilled forth as if they were a dam breaking. You don't know what he is. He's nothing but a puppet master. He feeds on your fears and desires. You'll end up like me, lost, forever. Pain clawed at the edges of her voice. The figure, still calm, looked unfazed. You misunderstand. Fear is not the enemy, it is a guide. Trust it. Trust me. He raised the crystal, casting a glow that swallowed the gloom, and Lila could hardly breathe, caught in the trance of its blinding brilliance, but her instincts screamed to flee. She thought of her family, her friends, the everyday life they shared, simple, flawed, yet whole. Would she trade that for a shimmering promise? She struggled against the wave of temptation rising within her. Lila, please. Jacob's plea cut through her thoughts, firm and unwavering. If you don't feel right, don't do it. You're strong just the way you are. In that critical heartbeat, Lila hesitated. What are you really offering? She shot back at the figure, frustration igniting her voice. If this is all about enlightenment, why the secrecy? Why the fear? His smile widened, and for a brief moment, the corners of his eyes crinkled with something almost human. Many truths are cloaked in shadows, Lila. But believe me, we do not lose ourselves, we evolve. Don't you want to be more? The pulse of the crystal quickened, drawing her nearer, and Lila's pulse raced in rhythm with its glow. She felt the energy swirling, an intoxicating mixture of fear and anticipation, a silent siren call pulling her against her better judgment. What if the woman was wrong? What if this truly was her chance to break free? But then she remembered the faces of those she had watched fade away, their laughter turned to echoes in the dark. No, she wouldn't let herself be swept away. I need to know, I won't lose myself, Lila whispered, almost pleading, the vulnerability drawing the crowd in. The only loss would be if you choose to turn away, the figure replied, the shadows dancing in his eyes. You have the power to shape your destiny, and your destiny awaits. And then, without warning, the fragile piece shattered. A sudden wind whipped through the street, icy fingers brushing against their skin, and the ground beneath them shifted. Gasps filled the air, bodies jerking back against the force that had transformed the world around them. It was as if reality was bending, warping under the strain of Lila's decision. The woman screamed, her voice drowned by the rising chaos. "No! You have to run. It's coming for us." Lila's heart raced. The air crackled with tension, and she felt the weight of the glowing crystal more than ever. It was powerful, enticing, and terrifying all at once. The shadows that loomed felt alive now, creeping ever closer. Would she stand firm against the storm, or would she allow the allure of transformation to carry her away into whatever waited beyond the light? The clock struck again, slicing through the chaos. This time, it felt like an exclamation point on the moment. Time was slipping away, and with all eyes on her, Lila knew the choice was hers for enlightenment, for courage, or perhaps for her very soul. Where would she find herself amidst the chaos? As she reached out toward the crystal, fear gripped her heart. What would she unleash? The ground trembled like a living beast, and a rumbling thunder echoed in the distance. Lila's heart fought against her ribcage, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The shadows twisted unnaturally, morphing into shapes that flickered, teasing her with hints of terror and mystery. "Lila!" Jacob's voice broke through the confusion, but it felt far away, muffled by the chaos surrounding her. "Don't do it. Let us get out of here." His eyes burned with urgency, but the power of the crystal cast a spell, intertwining hope and desperation. Her fingers hovered, trembling inches from its light. "Trust me, Lila." The figure's voice coiled around her, seductive and smooth. The glowing crystal pulsed rhythmically as if it had its own heartbeat, calling her, and she was powerless against it. With each pulse, the chaos swirled faster, more chaotic, demanding a choice. Her choice, but the woman's scream fought back against the pull. "You don't understand. It's not just a gift, it's a curse. You'll lose everything, including what you love." Panic marked every syllable, wrapping around Lila's thoughts and weighing them down. The shadows howled as if responding to the woman, angry and relentless. The onlookers stumbled back, eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. What was happening? What came next? They felt the shift in energy, an electric tension that stirred in the air. Faces blurred into one chaotic mass, all waiting for her to make a decision. "Lila." Jacob moved closer, his voice breaking through as if slicing through the deluge of sound and fury. "You're stronger than this. Remember why you came here." Her mind flickered to the simple moments, the sound of laughter at family gatherings, the warmth of her friends around a campfire, the quiet joy of a sunset. Was she willing to sacrifice it all for a glimpse of something potentially dark and unknown? The figure smiled, sensing her hesitation. "You'll never truly understand until you take the leap. This is your moment, your awakening. Embrace it." Lila felt entranced, the allure of transformation almost palpable. "But what are you hiding?" She shot back, her voice rising. "What does it really mean? Enlightenment or enslavement? Power comes at a price," the figure acknowledged, shoulders relaxing. "Embrace yourself or let fear define the rest of your life." At that moment, reality cracked open. The wind howled mercilessly, and with it, fragments of the crowd began to swirl into the air, lifting off their feet as ominous shadows crept closer. They clawed at her, but their faces twisted, turning into guttural forms of despair. "No!" The woman shrieked, shooting forward as if to protect Lila, and in that instant, the space between reality and illusion evaporated. Lila took a step back, her breath hitching. The power of the crystal before her surged, the figures in the shadows reflected a multitude of past selves. She saw fragments of who she was. Every betrayal, every regret flashed before her, and it was overwhelming. "Is this what you want?" She screamed, her voice tearing through the chaos. The figure laughed, a deep booming sound that echoed in the maelstrom. "Everything you've ever wanted is here. But first, you have to choose." Then the ground lurched violently, and the air thickened. Lila felt a shift deep within her, a choice crystallizing in the storm of chaos. She stood at the edge, adrenaline spiking, heart pounding in her ears. Would she dive into the abyss, or leap back to the safety of the mundane? With eyes wide, consumed by the swirling shadows, she breathed deeply, feeling the weight of everything around her. And as she readied to make her fateful choice, the shadows screamed louder, demanding her decision. The air electrified, time grinding to a halt. Lila was teetering on the brink. What would she unleash when she acted? The destiny she chose could either lead to freedom or bind her forever. In that heartbeat, where the world could explode or fall silent, something deep inside her trembled. As her hand inched closer to the crystal once more, one thought reverberated in the depths of her mind. Was she ready to face what awaited beyond the threshold? Her fingers brushed the cool edge of the crystal, a surge of energy coursing through her like electric fire. She held her breath, caught in the throes of uncertainty. Could she truly grasp what lay ahead? The figure's voice was a siren song, smooth and enticing, wrapping around her like a blanket, both comforting and suffocating. Take it, Lila. You're meant for this. It urged, shadows caressing her skin, whispering secrets of power. But the weight of the woman's scream rang in Lila's ears, sharp and clear. The image of the crowd swirling around her cut through the haze. They were watching, each face painted with a mixture of fascination and horror. Lila, please. Jacob's shout shattered the moment. His desperation triggered an instinctive surge within her. The crystal pulsed faster, a heartbeat that echoed in sync with her racing pulse. A potential world unfolded before her, a world drawn by power and possibility, but there was a tangible chill creeping up her spine. The figures in the shadows shimmered and trembled, a foreboding reminder that with great power came inevitable cost. What are we if we surrender ourselves? Lila called back, her voice timid yet defiant against the chaos. Everything you ever feared is unmade, the figure replied, its tone seductive, a smirk playing at the corners of its lips. You're the architect of your destiny. Choose freedom. A pulse of light flared from the crystal, seeping into the cracks of reality, and for a heartbeat, Lila caught glimpses of future, some shining like stars, others dark as the void. She gasped, the fear threatening to overwhelm her, twisting in her gut. What if she plunged into the shadows? Then she remembered her laughter, the warmth of friendship, the simple joys each day had to offer. Would she throw that away for the unknown, for a fleeting glimpse of something beyond her grasp? Don't do it, Lila. Jacob cried, his voice cracking through the tempest. You can't let it deceive you. Those words unraveled something deep within her. Lila wavered, heart swelling with conflict. The power called to her, yes, but at what cost? Freedom from herself or enslavement to the shadows? Choose wisely. The figure hissed, an edge creeping into its voice. The shadows whipped around her like a storm, suffocating and relentless. With shaking breath, Lila pulled her hand back, heart pounding against her ribs as the intensity of her decision bore down like a tidal wave. I want to be drawn in. I'm not ready to lose everything, she declared, voice growing stronger. A sudden shockwave of fury erupted from the figure. You'll regret this. You're walking away from your true self. Darkness roiled, and in the commotion, Lila felt the ground beneath her tremble violently once again. The air crackled with energy, and the sealed bond of the shadows began to fracture. A blinding light burst forth from the crystal, erupting into a storm of color that swept over everything. Lila! Grab my hand! Jacob yelled, extending his arm towards her. The moment hung in the air, suspended in time. She could either reach for the safety of Jacob's grip or embrace the chaos that beckoned with open arms. It was an unbearable choice, the tension tightening around her like a snake ready to strike. As shadows descended like a shroud, Lila made her decision, heart racing with the weight of the moment. The world fractured around her with an almost unbearable roar. Just as darkness closed in, Lila felt something shift within her. Was it regret? Courage? Something had changed irrevocably. The shadows lunged forward, and in the blink of an eye, she was torn between light and dark. What fate awaited her now? in this twisted realm of choices. The moment Lila felt the world's fabric tear apart, it was as if she was yanked through a tunnel of swirling colors and sounds, all blending into a deafening roar. Her heart raced in her chest, and a gut-wrenching fear clawed at her insides. Where was she going? The shadows and blinding light morphed into a pulsating mass around her as she was thrown into an unknown expanse, then, silence. She found herself standing on solid ground, though it felt like a thin layer of ice, rough and jagged underfoot. The world around her was starkly different. It was a surreal landscape painted with vibrant colors that shouldn't belong together, an ethereal clash of twilight blues and fiery reds, swirling into an endless horizon. Lila, a voice echoed softly, pulling her attention. She turned, heart hammering, to find Jacob standing a few paces away, his face pale and tense. "Are you okay?" He reached out, confusion mixed with dread in his eyes. "Where are we?" Lila whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. The air felt electric, charged with a raw energy that made the hairs on her neck stand up. "I don't know, but it feels wrong," he said, glancing nervously at the shadows writhing at the edges of their surroundings. The figures from before were now part of the landscape, darting between the colors, watching with eyes that glinted like shards of polished obsidian. "I rejected it, Jacob," she said. "I chose not to take the crystal, but it led me here anyway." Panic rose in her throat. "What if we can't get back?" Jacob stepped closer, urgency etched deep in his features. "This isn't a place for weak hearts," he warned, his voice low and firm. "We need to find a way out before those shadows decide to move in closer." Just as he spoke, a wave of darkness surged toward them, a swarm of tendrils snaking around with malicious intent. The mass roared to life, filling the air with whispers of despair. Lila shuddered, fear anchoring her feet to the ground. "Follow me!" Jacob shouted, yelling over the encroaching darkness. He took off at a run, and Lila hurried after him, adrenaline pumping through her veins. They dashed through the warped landscape, weaving between bursts of light and flickering shadows, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Suddenly, they stumbled into an open space, ostensibly a small clearing where the chaotic hues swirled and danced around. At the center stood a monument, a tall, crystalline tower that glimmered with an otherworldly light. Its surface shimmered like the surface of a lake at dawn, inviting and mesmerizing. "What is this?" Lila whispered, enchanted despite the fear still gnawing at her soul. "I don't know, but it feels different," Jacob replied. He reached out cautiously, as if afraid the tower might vanish if he touched it. As their fingers brushed its surface, the structure trembled, sending waves of energy rippling through the air. The whispers intensified, merging with the sounds of crashing waves and distant thunder. Then a single shadow broke free from the swirling chaos, lunging toward them with blinding speed. Lila's heart felt as if it had stopped. "Jacob!" She screamed, bracing herself for the impact, but then everything froze. The shadow halted just inches away, as if a wall had materialized between them. It hovered, diaphanous and dark, faceless yet filled with an unmistakable menace. "You have come to the crossroads," it hissed, the air vibrating with every word. "Will you weave your fate anew, or remain lost amongst the shadows?" Lila's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of choices closing in on her. What did it want? What would it ask from them? Just when the shadows seemed poised to envelop them, Lila felt a surge rise within her, a flicker of defiance against the chilling anticipation. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, forcing strength into her voice. The shadow only laughed, a sound like brittle ice cracking, and spoke again, "You must remember the choices we make shape who we are." The energy from the tower pulsed violently, reaching out to touch her, as vivid memories flooded her mind. Faces of her friends. Laughter echoing through sunlit days, and the warmth of shared moments mixed with a cold fear of loss. With the decision laid bare before her, Lila took a shaky step forward. "I want to be a pawn in your game." I choose what she would choose, she didn't know yet. But she felt something, power, purpose, something waiting to ignite. Would it lead her deeper into the shadows, or offer a desperate path back to the light? As she spoke, the tower reacted fiercely, and the shadow let out a guttural growl. What would happen when Lila made her choice? The air crackled, filled with unspoken tension, waiting on the edge of revelation. Lila's breath hitched in her throat. The atmosphere around her shimmered with anticipation as she felt the ground beneath her vibrate with energy. The crystalline tower pulsed in rhythm with her racing heart, and she knew then that everything hung in the balance. "I choose to," she began, her mind scrambling for the words that would change their fate. But the uncertainty buried deep within her felt like a weight dragging her down. She hesitated, and the shadow loomed closer, dark tendrils swirling around, whispering her doubts back to her. "Choose wisely," it taunted, its voice like cold wind rustling through barren trees. "You might find that which you seek, or lose everything you hold dear." Jacob stepped closer to her, his eyes wide, urging her silently to continue. "Lila," he began, voice trembling. "Don't let it manipulate you. Just say it." The memory of laughter flashed through her mind again, faces of those she loved flickering like candle flames. "I choose power," she finally declared, the words bursting forth like a floodgate released. It felt right, empowering. In response, the crystal tower erupted in a blinding display of light. All-consuming, it enveloped them as the shadows shrieked, retreating under the brilliance. Yet, as the light dimmed, she found herself alone on solid ground once more. Darkness now swallowed Jacob from her view. Panic surged in her chest. "Jacob!" she shouted, her voice teetering between fear and desperation. "Lila, over here." A dim silhouette emerged from the chaotic haze, and Lila rushed toward it. When she reached him, her heart sank. Jacob appeared ashen, eyes wide with disbelief. "What did you do?" he gasped. I don't know. I just wanted," but the words faltered. What had she wanted? To be strong. To control her destiny. In an overwhelming rush of anger and fear, she sank to her knees. "I thought it would help us." Suddenly, the shadow shifted menacingly, creeping along the edges of their vision, drawn to them as if sensing their vulnerability. "You wished for power," it hissed, slinking forward. "Power always comes at a price, dear Lila." As it spoke, Lila felt an unsettling stir within her. A warmth flooded her veins, crawling through her muscles, illuminating her mind a sense of clarity. "What have you done?" Jacob shouted, clutching her arm as if he might pull her back from the brink. "I don't know," she yelled, pulling away from him, confusion warping her features. In that instant, she glanced at Jacob, and something inside her surged unexpectedly. Without thinking, she lifted her hands toward the shadow, feeling an odd energy vibrating in her fingertips. "Enough!" she cried, channeling the power that coursed through her, unfamiliar yet thrilling. The shadow faltered for a heartbeat, as if assessing her before it lunged forward, stronger and faster. A harrowing zip of fear gripped her, but with urgency booming in her heart, she shouted words she didn't understand, calling on that burst of strength within her. The crystal tower lit up again, its brilliant light arcing between Lila and the approaching darkness. She felt it a connection to the tower, to the colors swirling around them. It was fire igniting in her soul. The world blurting into some unreadable form of existence. "Lila!" Jacob's frantic voice broke through, but just as she turned to find him, the landscape shifted beneath her. The ethereal colors twisted violently, dragging her in every direction like stormy waters. Breathless, she grasped at the fading remnants of her choice as shadows clawed at her thoughts. Had she made the right one? Will you submit to the darkness, or unleash the true power within? The shadow taunted, its presence looming ever closer, slithering back into view, snapping her fingers. Lila felt the hot pulse within her, the growing crescendo of resolve. "I will not be afraid." If she was to hold the power she'd chosen, she'd have to face whatever this shadow truly represented within and around her. But the walls of reality quaked, and the winds howled. What would the shadow unleash next? Would it be salvation or something darker, lurking just beyond the light? The tension built like a tempest, waiting for the moment to break. The moment Lila summoned her resolve, the world erupted in chaos. The air crackled with energy as the shadow recoiled, realizing it had underestimated her. In that heartbeat of pause, her heart raced, the impending confrontation hanging in the air like a fragile balloon. Lila! Fight it! Jacob's voice traveled through the whirlwind. She barely recognized him through the distortion that engulfed them, his face a blur of worry and urgency. As the shadow recoiled, its form contorted and writhed, revealing a mass of swirling darkness. It pulsed like a living creature, hungry and relentless, eyes glimmering with malicious intent. You think this is power? It hissed, voice mocking as it darted closer, weaving through the deafening chaos. You have no idea what you've unleashed. The tower flickered in response, its light stabilizing the seismic shifts around them. Lila could feel it calling to her, imbuing her with a strange confidence. The warmth in her veins spread like wildfire, flooding her with vivid visions of who she could become if she harnessed it, a warrior, a protector, no longer a victim lost in shadows. Stay close, Jacob! She shouted, her voice steadying as she squared her shoulders. She thrust her hands forward again, an instinctive act fueled by the flare of power within. The blinding light radiated from her, a protective shield that pushed back against the darkness. The shadow screeched, its form shimmering under the intensity of Lila's light. You will regret this, it roared. You have invited chaos into your life, and nothing can save you from it. The ground trembled, splintering beneath their feet. Boulders, once solid, began to rise, twisting ominously as if reaching for her, drawn to her power. Panic flared in Jacob's eyes. What is happening? He yelled, trying to make sense of the chaos. A surge of fear rippled through Lila, but she concentrated, letting her power radiate brighter. I don't know, she confessed, but we can't let it take us. In response, the shadows swirled more fiercely, erupting into a whirling vortex of darkness. It screamed, an inhuman sound that echoed through the air, reverberating against her soul. The noise clawed at her, but deep inside her, an ember of courage ignited. Now! She commanded, gathering her energy. Flames of light poured from her fingertips, twisting and coiling, wrapping around Jacob and herself. We can defeat it together. Jacob, finding his own center, seized her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Together, he echoed, a flicker of hope in his voice. United, their energies fused, merging like sun and storm. The world exploded in brilliant colors. Light exploded outward, pushing the shadows back, inch by inch. They could feel encouragement coursing through them, a heartbeat thrumming in time with their resolve. But there was something else, a hint of dread curling in the corners of her mind, a prospect of what lay ahead if they succeeded. What's coming? Lila breathed out, feeling the whirlwind of power, hope, and uncertainty pulse around her. With each surge of light, she could sense the shadow straining, edging closer to breaking point, yet it also felt like her control was slipping. Suddenly, one deafening howl broke through the resonance, and a darkness more profound than she had ever known lunged forward, engulfing Jacob in its depth. Jacob! Lila screamed, a cry filled with terror as the energy she had summoned flickered and dimmed. As she lunged toward him, desperation clawing at her throat, she felt the terrible weight of her choice, the power and the price. Would she be strong enough to risk everything? The moment hung precariously, and she knew the real test had just begun. In the blur of energy and shadow, she had one critical decision left to make. Could she save him, or would she lose herself in the dark? What emerged from the shadows next would change everything, and Lila braced herself for the impossible revelations that awaited. The echo of the past, the cost of power, it was all crashing down. Lila felt the world shatter around her as Jacob vanished into the fray of shadows, swallowed whole by a darkness that clawed ferociously at her heart. Fear surged through her, tightening her chest. No, no, no! She screamed, tears streaking down her cheeks. The brilliance she had summoned flickered, wavering under the weight of despair. Jacob! She cried, the sound tearing from her throat raw and aching. She reached for the last remnants of their connection, the energy they had built together still lingering in her fingers. But it felt heavy now, laden with uncertainty. The shadows, sensing her weakness, twisted around her, dark tendrils reaching, probing, filled with menacing whispers. Lila! Jacob's voice broke through the obscuring darkness, a faint echo, barely audible. You have to fight it. Don't let it take you. Hold on. She called back urgently, even as the shadows laughed, mockery echoing in the corners of her mind. The vibrant energy that had filled her heart now strained against the weight of sorrow. I will save you. She shouted defiantly, grounding herself in the essence of resolve. The ground shook violently, a monstrous rumble resonating through the fabric of their surreal world. More shadows surged, pulsating with hunger, closing in, eager to snuff out the light she had awakened. But within her, she felt the fire flare once more, the determination born from knowing that she could not just lose Jacob. In his absence, she would lose herself. With that thought igniting her spirit, Lila drew in a deep breath. She could not allow fear to bind her. The shadows were filled with echoes of choices, reflections of everything she had witnessed, the laughter, the love, and the friendships that defined her. She allowed these memories to pour into her, fueling the fire within. Together, Jacob, she whispered, feeling him even in the depths of darkness. I will not back down. Pulses of light burst forth from her, striking out like chains of hope woven from her heart. As if in response, the shadows shrieked in fury, recoiling from her brightness. Power is only as strong as the heart that wields it. She shouted, channeling everything she had, the deepest longing to save her friend and push back the dark, but as soon as the light surged, the shadows retaliated with relentless ferocity. They twisted and contorted, hissing their insidious promises. You cannot save him. The price is too high. That unyielding force struck at her, aiming to tear down her resolve. Yet Lila stood firm, drawing on the memories that kept her anchored to who she truly was: her family, her friends, the warmth of the sun on her face. In that moment, she understood, power wasn't something to fear, it was to be claimed, embraced alongside love. I refuse to let you have him. She roared, the words birthed from the depths of her soul, laced with a fierce defiance that crackled through the air. The light blazed brighter, a storm ignited, pushing outward like a shockwave. Shadows wavered under the power of her declaration, their form blurred and distorted as they competed against her will. She could feel Jacob's essence still, flickering just beyond her reach, and in that moment, everything crystallized into an unwavering truth. They were connected, bound together by their shared experiences, their hopes, and dreams. The weight she carried wasn't hers alone. With one final surge, fueled by every ounce of love she held for him, Lila closed her eyes, and her voice rose, clear and resonant. Let him go. The command echoed through the chaos, shooting straight through the darkness. For an instant, the world froze, time suspended until the brightness erupted one last time. Light erupted, a spearing lance that penetrated the very heart of the shadows. It burst forth with a brilliance that filled every corner of the warped landscape with blinding clarity. Lila gasped as she felt the spectral triumph, the bond she shared with Jacob seeping back, stronger than ever. She pushed with all her might, and then it happened. A whirlwind of light surrounded them, forming an unyielding barrier against the shadows. There in the center, Jacob emerged, taking a breath, eyes wide with realization. Lila! He gasped, stepping forward, or reflected in his tone. You did it! The shadow roared in fury, its form collapsing inward, the darkness sucked away by the imploding light. As the chaos dimmed, Lila felt a warmth spread through her, illuminating everything inside: her fears, her strength, and every essence of who she was. Then silence wrapped around them, tender and warm, as the twisted landscape slowly melted back into familiarity. The vibrant colors that danced through their previous realm faded into a gentle sunset, casting hues of orange and pink across the sky, bringing a sense of hope. I thought I lost you, Lila whispered, finally collapsing into Jacob's waiting arms, relief washing over them like a soothing wave. I thought I couldn't. I thought I'd lost everything. Jacob's grip tightened around her, grounding both of them to reality. We're still here, he murmured, the familiar warmth of their friendship flickering back into life as they stood on solid ground. We're still us. The shadows flickered in the distance, retreating into the depths of their fears, a reminder that they had confronted darkness and emerged victorious. In that moment, Lila understood that their choices could shape their paths, but friendship would forever illuminate their way. They had faced the edge of despair and returned hand in hand, learning that neither power nor fear could conquer the light that held them together. The impossible had transformed them, not into something more, but back into the very best of themselves, stronger, braver, warriors of their own destinies, united. As they looked toward the horizon, a new life awaited them on the other side of the sunset, a world painted with endless possibilities. This was their story, and they were more than ready to write its next chapter together. Now, as the tale concludes, don't forget, you need to subscribe now. Hit that red button so you don't miss out on the next exclusive story. Smash that like button, guys. Your support fuels this channel. Tell me in the comments what you thought. I want to hear all your theories about this ending, and remember to chat about your favorite parts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know the power of facing inner darkness and the strength found in unity. Your support means everything. Thank you.